and we're going to get straight into it. So today we wanted to cover, we had some great suggestions from the community, some questions about email marketing. So we're just going to put together something about how to get the most from your email marketing. So how to have really, really awesome email marketing. And we're going to cover quite a lot today. So we're going to take a look at the key ingredients to successful email marketing, not just, sending stuff out and hoping for the best results, but actually having it successful. And then I'm going to show you some different types of nurture, because nurture is the really important part. I'm also going to show you a real life example of how well you can do when you really nail it. I'll show you a little bit about the science behind why it actually works. And then I'm going to show you those two types of nurture in depth. I'm even going to pull in some campaign structures, and I'm going to show you the structure to what we call perfect sales campaign. So the campaign structure that we give to all of our clients. And we give to our community as well, and then we'll chat next steps. So just to get into the introductions, I am Kenda Macdonald, and I specialize in behavioral marketing automation, and I run an agency called Automation Ninjas. And we talk and we chat and we create everything to do with the customer journey, so and how to automate it. So everything that you need to do in order to get leads coming in, how to convert those leads at a higher rate, how to make sure you have really good quality customers, and that you can keep them happy and have really high customer lifetime value. So that's everything that we do. And I also wrote a book called Hack the Buyer Brain, which is all about how we evolve to survive, not to buy stuff online. Because my background is in forensic psychology, I bring the psychology into the marketing, but I do spend most of my day creating customer journeys for lots of different people across lots of different industries. And there's one thing that I've learned in doing all of this, and that it's all about the value. If you are going to succeed with your marketing automation, it's got to be about the value. Because at the end of the day, as a species, humans send around 293.6 billion emails a day. So it's quite a lot of stuff that we're sending out all the time. But generally, for every dollar that you spend on email marketing, you should get a return on investment of around $44. So email marketing can be phenomenal for your business if it's done the right way. It can be extremely powerful. And we know that consumers want to keep in contact with us via email. So don't listen to people when they say that email is not the thing. So we know that certain consumers like to be in contact via social, but 60% of consumers want to be in contact with you via email if they deem your product or service important enough. So that's the key, is how important are you to them. And the important thing about email as well is its own traffic. It's something that you own that list. So if your Facebook account gets shut down, or if your Google PPC stops working, or your website goes down, you still have that email list of people that you can contact. It's a very secure form of contacting people. But it's not all roses, not all happy. Around 59% of people who unsubscribe from lists say that they were getting too many emails. And that's a little bit scary, because then we get into the conversation of, well, should we be sending emails, and how should we be sending emails? Around 43% of people within that study also said that one of the main reasons that they unsubscribed was also because the information was no longer relevant to them. So they've grown and they've moved past that thing that they originally signed up for. And around 43% of people didn't recognize the brand or don't remember signing up. Now, that is pretty crap. If you have an audience that has signed up for something and has then gone along to unsubscribe because they don't remember who you are, you're not doing a good job with your email marketing. And it's something that you really need to be keeping an eye on. So what we want to make sure that we're doing is we are keeping totally front of mind. We are getting the right kind of ROI, and we're engaging with people in such a way that we don't do any of those bad things. We give them a happy amount of emails, and we make sure that they're really enjoying the information that we receive. And in order to do that, the real key to getting good ROI is purely in the value that you provide. Now, over the last 10 years of sending various different campaigns out and working in email marketing, the big thing is making sure that when you are sending your email communications, it is not all about you, because it's all about your audience all the time. So if you want to provide value, and you want to make sure that you're engaging your audience, you have to make sure that you're providing the right kind of information. And do not just send emails constantly talking about your opinion on something or your this and that. Unless you're a really strong thought leader, people aren't going to be interested in that. So the real ingredients that you want to be putting to your email success, there's a lot of different things that you want to be putting, but there's some key ingredients. The first is actually the lead magnet, and this is the step that people take to actually signing up to being part of your list. That is your first sort of interaction with people, and if this part isn't good, the rest of it is also going to be bad, and they will have a bad opinion from the get-go. So we don't want that. We want to make sure that from the get-go, they're extremely excited to be on your list. So the lead magnet is a very, very important part to your email success. Then we have the follow-up. That's really important to make sure that you have keyed in follow-up, and I'm actually going to show you an example of how you can do that. And then this one is the one that people tend to forget. You are building value continually. Every little communication that you send builds up to form an experience that your audience is receiving from you. So you can't just give them value once and then sell the rest of the time. You have to continue building that value. And I'm going to show you the science behind why that is so important. And then you have your long-term nurture. And this is something that most businesses don't do. And this is the thing that makes my customers the most amount of money, is the long-term nurture and the approach to that. And we'll get into that in a second. And all of this is setting the scene for sales. And if you don't set the scene for sales appropriately, you're not going to get sales. So the key ingredients to success are really that lead magnet, that follow-up that you give them, how you keep in contact with them afterwards, and how you build that value. But you'll notice that I don't mention anything individually here. I'm not saying it's this funnel or it's this sales sequence or that specific thing. We're not talking about that here. We're not even talking about copy for the most part here. This is that overarching feel that they get from being on your list or being part of your audience. It's the whole experience. And I know that sounds a bit woo-woo, but there's some quite heavy science behind that. But all of it continually setting that scene for sales. So let's talk about the beginning part to this process, and that is the lead magnet. Because lead magnets are very misunderstood and very often not given enough attention. And they're such a vital part to the sales process. So all a lead magnet is it's taking someone from an unknown, so they don't know who you are, they're ghost traffic on the internet, to being someone that knows, likes, and trusts you. That is the job of a lead magnet. It's to bring them in and enable you to send them communications and enable that relationship that builds. So you're basically giving them an incentive for permission to contact them. And that sets the scene for all of your contacts from that person for the rest of your life, effectively. So we have to make sure that our lead magnet is really keyed in to what we do and how we're going to communicate with them. It's an extremely important part of the process. It's the linchpin to all of your efforts afterwards. So very important that we get it right from the get-go. So there's a lot of different types of lead magnets out there. You have things like PDFs and checklists. You have those ebooks. You have video download series and email series and webinars and tutorials. You have templates and worksheets and workbooks. All that kind of stuff is what we like to call top of funnel stuff. It's very basic stuff that people might come in for because it's something that they're interested in. But then we start to get a little bit further on and we have more in-depth lead magnets. And you get things like toolkits and calculators, and challenges and replays and quizzes and all that kind of stuff as well. At this point, people are giving you a little bit more information. So they're only telling us really in the beginning part what they're interested in, but here we might find out a little bit more about who they are and what they're interested in, maybe what's a problem for them right now. And then you get bottom of funnel stuff. And the bottom of funnel stuff is all the lead magnets that may have to do with the actual sales process. So, giveaways. So if you're giving away a coupon or you're giving free shipping, obviously that's right in the sales process. You might have a book that you're giving a sample of, and that's quite a chunky thing. You might have a membership that you're giving free access to. You might give a trial, or you might give away a consultation. This is all stuff that the people that are going to take up these lead magnets are already kind of interested in your product and services. So you can already see with lead magnets how we can learn a little bit about who that person is, but they play a fundamental role in that value. And that value is really the crux of everything that we're doing here. So a good lead magnet must add value, and it must solve a problem. So if it's not solving a problem for your audience, it's not going to tell us enough information about who they are and what they're interested in, but it's also not going to add enough value. So we have to make sure that our lead magnets are right. So here's some must-haves before we move on to the actual email bit of this. So some lead magnet must-haves are things like it definitely has to solve a problem. It must provide a quick win. So it must give them a little taste of the kind of experience that they can expect from you. It must be specific, so you want to make sure that it's not too broad. It's got to be very specific so that it tells you about who they are and makes it easy for them to consume. So don't make it difficult to wade through loads of information. Give them what they want straight away. It must be of high value, otherwise people aren't going to take it. And don't get caught up in not making sure that the value is instantly accessible. So you need to give people something straight away to get that relationship off on the right foot effectively. And then, of course, it must demonstrate your expertise. Now, if you are doing all of this with your lead magnets, you're putting yourself in a really, really good position so that all of your follow-up afterwards is, really going to be keyed into what they care about. But if we don't do this with our lead magnets, they're not going to be good quality, and we're not going to build that relationship from the get-go. So the other thing is with lead magnets is that pain conquers all, because this is effectively what our consumers are loyal to. They aren't loyal to you. They don't really care about you at the end of the day. The thing that they care about is whether or not you are going to help them get to the next step in their journey. How are you helping them provide the solution to what they want effectively? So they don't care about us other than the fact that we are a vehicle to solving their problem. So we need to be really clear on that. And if your lead magnet isn't helping solve that problem, or at least signposting the solution to that problem, then we're not going to get off on the right foot. So if we want to shortcut people's attention, then we need to make sure that we meet them where they are right now. So your lead magnet always needs to focus on taking a problem that they have and then providing a solution, and just showing them how they transition through to that solution. And that is where your nurture and your email series starts to come in. Because if you are focusing on solving a problem and showing them what the solution is, there is a lot that we can do to nurture them along that journey to the solution and transition them nicely to the point where we are the obvious solution to help them attain that specific solution. So this is where we start getting into the nurture. And so you've got your lead magnet, they've signed up for it. Now it's time to send them that email series afterwards. And this is where people start to get into a little bit of trouble with their email marketing because they don't do their homework. But we're going to do your homework for you today, right here. So there are two different types of nurture. There isn't just one. There are two different types of nurture, and they're both awesome, but they have totally distinctive roles to play within your email marketing. And nurture, like when you break it down, all nurture is it's a form of drip marketing. And by drip marketing, I mean, it's something where you are taking a little piece of content and you're dripping it along. Now, I got a really great definition from Campaign Monitor as to what nurture is. And a nurture campaign is, and this is what they said, right? Bear with me. A nurture campaign is a series of emails that are sent on lead behavior, which deliver timely, targeted information that helps guide the lead through the buying process. Now, that's not incorrect. It's not completely wrong, but it's also not completely right. Because there are two different types of nurture. What they are talking here about is what we call short-term nurture. And short-term nurture is great. It's the type of email marketing that everybody tends to know about. When someone signs up for something, you want to send them an email series, right? So it's the kind of content that goes immediately after someone signs up for something. So in this instance, someone signed up for your lead magnet, we're going to send them some emails to deliver the lead magnet. It's generally triggered by some kind of behavior, like a sign up, and it's specific to that behavior. So, someone signed up for the lead magnet, so we're going to send them a lead magnet series, like, a couple of emails relating to that lead magnet. So it's very, very keyed into what's going on. It's not what we call onboarding. That's a welcome series. It's slightly different. It's just someone's done something specific. We're going to give them a little bit of information. And it's short term. It doesn't go forever, just goes for that little bit. So that is what Campaign Monitor is talking about here. Short-term nurture. Somebody does something, we deliver some emails. But that's not the most effective nurture that you can be doing. It's extremely important and you have to be doing it. But the place that you're going to make the most money is with your long-term nurture. And what your long-term nurture is just nurture that goes always. And hence the term long-term, right? And what you should do with your long-term nurture is you should drip content over a really, really long period of time, so basically forever, and you should track people's behavior. This is the stuff that is the money maker. Because when you track people's behavior, you get to know who they are. You progressively profile them. You learn a little bit more about them all the time. It allows you to segment your audience. And that sounds complicated, but it can be done so simply. So you have your short-term nurture and your long-term nurture, and it's the interaction between the two that builds the experience that they have with your database. And all your nurture is it's some online relationship building, and it's just you getting to know them by talking about the stuff that they are interested in. Okay, and we're going to get into the nitty-gritty between the two, don't worry. I'm even going to give you some campaign structures for them. But it's really important that we don't talk about ourselves all the time. We're talking about them and the problems that they have, because that's what they're interested in. Interestingly, if you're an introvert, you already do this really well. So if you're an introvert and you spend a lot of time with really loud, noisy extroverts like me, then you do this constantly, because you'll ask people like me questions about myself, and because I'm a total narcissist, I will definitely chat about myself a lot. So introverts are really good at doing this, and all of us extroverts, we need to learn from the introverts. You learn a lot by somebody by talking about them effectively. So I'm going to show you how this has actually worked for a client of ours, because I want to show you the impact that it can have. So we have a fantastic client called New Zealand Natural Clothing. They run some brick and mortar clothing stores. So they have 5 shops across New Zealand. And when they originally came to us, they wanted to put together their online store, and they wanted to make their online store work, because it wasn't working very well. So we've done a lot of stuff with them over the years, because we've been working with them for a while. We put together lead magnets, we've done landing pages, we've done a newsletter, we've done RFM, so recency, frequency, and monetary value segmentation, which works fantastically for e-commerce. We even put a full customer journey in. They have a behavioral content plan, and we do things like we even trigger campaigns based on behavior. Now, all this stuff is good and fine. We've done all of that, but there's one thing that we've done that has had the biggest results, and it's quite irritating because it's the easiest thing to do as well. And that is just communicate consistently to his audience. So the one thing that we did was we focused on consistent value add. So constantly making sure that we were adding value and we were providing the right information to the right people, and always talking about the problems and challenges that his audience has. And it was just a long-term nurture campaign that dripped some blog posts that he was already writing, or that we were already writing for him consistently every week. That's all the long-term nurture is for him. And what that did is he got a 231% increase in his conversion rates without changing anything else. He had 126% higher average order value, so more people effectively spending more money every time they were purchasing, so buying these more expensive products. He had a massive increase in new leads and the customer lifetime value as an association, because we were putting more blog posts up, which meant he was having more traffic through to the site as well, and people were referring more often. He had increased engagement and a decreased amount of opt-outs, so his open rate and click-through rates went up and his unsubscribers went down. So pretty phenomenal, just from sending a weekly email that had real value inside it. And this is what it looked like for one of his sales campaigns. So I've got 3 years of data that I can show you. And I'm just going to say this is one of his specific seasonal sales. So we know that when Mother's Day comes around, we're always going to do a Mother's Day campaign. That's always going to happen. So there isn't any variation. Nothing else has changed. This is still going to his database. It's still going to his audience. So in 2018, he had 29 orders, and we were just starting the long-term nurture here. We hadn't really got into the nitty-gritty of it, and we're struggling to get blog content out of him to create that information. So he had 29 sales, a sort of around $4.5 grand, not too bad. What he was pretty used to. In 2019, we sort of just got into the swing of the long-term nurture, got him producing consistent blog content. It was about 3 months in when this campaign went out. So he had 42 sales and $6.5 grand. So it's about an increase of about 38%. Not bad. Most businesses would be really happy with that. We know that we could get more though. So we pushed really hard for the next year to make sure that there was consistent blog content going out, was consistent value add, and that people were really enjoying it. And in 2020, so very recently, this is in April, he had 183 orders from the same campaign. $30,000 worth of sales went through, and that was about a 24 grand increase from the previous year, so a 358% increase. So pretty phenomenal results, and the only change he had was increasing the consistency of that value add communication to his audience. So it can be really, really powerful if it's done the right way. There's a reason that this works. So I want to show you the brain stuff. I want to show you the psychology behind it. So there was a great experiment done by Professor Brian Knudsen of Stanford University, and what he wanted to figure out was, how does the brain work when it makes a purchase? So what happens in the brain when it's deciding whether or not to buy something? So he set up the experiment. He put people in an fMRI scanner, and he said, I'm going to show you a product. I'm going to show you a picture of a product. I'm going to show you the price of the product, and then I'm going to give you an arbitrary amount of money, and you can decide whether or not you're going to purchase it. Now, he showed them lots of different products and across lots of different price ranges, but the most universal example was chocolates. He showed people some chocolates, and it was really interesting what happened, because we expected this to a certain extent in psychology. We expected the reward centers of the brain to fire. So people see a product that they want, the reward center of the brain fires. Pretty standard, what was expected to happen. But it was when people saw the price of the product that it really threw the cat amongst the pigeons. Because if you follow sort of like Antonio Damasio and that kind of stuff, if you're a bit of a psychology geek like me, you'll know that we can't make decisions without emotion. You know, so the decision-making process, emotion is indispensable to that process. We have an emotive value on things, and people who have got parts of their brain damaged where they can't feel emotion can't make logical decisions. So, you know, it's not as straightforward as, you know, we see the logic behind something and therefore we just make a decision. We're not Vulcans, we can't do that. So we have this logic center of our brain, we have this emotion center of our brain, and they're really wired together. And so we kind of expected that that would happen when people saw the price, that the logic and emotional centers would fire and they would build that into the decision-making process. Completely not what happened when people saw the price. Instead, what happened was the pain centers of the brain lit up like a Christmas tree. This is literally the part of the brain that is dealing with physical trauma and emotional trauma. And it really, really surprised everybody. The emotional psychologists got involved and the evolutionary psychologists got involved. And we eventually figured out that it's because of the fact that we are handing over resources. And these resources are really keyed into our survival. So to understand giving away money, so giving away something that is a resource that is key into our survival, it is painful, and our body doesn't want us to do that. The brain doesn't want us to give away resources that could impede our chances of survival. So in order for our brains to understand what price is, they hack themselves and try and figure out what price is and what it means to us. And what it means to us is less survival because we're giving resources away. So it's a pretty big wake-up call that price isn't dealt with in the ways that we would expect price to be dealt with. And the brain did not evolve to survive to do these things. The brain just evolved to get to the next day. It evolved to pass our genes on, and that was pretty much it. So we are using the weird part of our brain for this, and this has some serious implications on our marketing, because they saw something even cooler. They realized that when they were looking at the brain scans, they could say with a really, really high margin of accuracy whether or not someone was going to purchase based purely on those two activation centers. So they realized that there was actually a purchase formula developing. And that means that we know what goes into making a purchase. And if these things are out of kilter, the purchase isn't going to happen. So the purchase formula developed. And that purchase formula is the net value of a product. So the likelihood someone is going to purchase is equal to the amount of reward activation we receive minus the amount of pain activation. So what they figured out was that net value had to be positive and it had to be high. So our reward activation had to be much higher than our pain activation in order to get a consumer to purchase something. If that activation was out of kilter, so we had more pain activation to reward activation, it wasn't going to happen for us and that purchase wasn't going to go through. So that's really important, because that means that we have some control over this as brands. We cannot get rid of that pain. That's how the brain understands price. We can't get rid of that. But what we can do is we can control the amount of reward activation that people receive for our products and services. And that is what your nurture series are doing. Because what your nurture series are doing is they are heightening the position of your brand. This is what luxury brands do really well. They heighten the position of their brand and their products and their services way above the rest of the market brands. And if you do this consistently, like New Zealand Natural Clothing did, you consistently send out value-add information, the reward value goes up. The reward value that your consumers perceive for your brand increases, because we can do that with quality content and positioning. We can heighten that reward value based purely on consistent value add. It's also why content marketing works so well, because it increases that amount of reward value that people have. So Nurture is just doing this. It's just constantly heightening the position of the brand. So when we take a look at Nurture, there is something very specific that we are doing. We're affecting that purchase formula, but we're also focusing on the engage part of the lifecycle marketing framework. That's what your email marketing, your email nurture should do. And the engage part of the framework just focuses on educating, consistently educating your audience and adding value. And that's what we want to be doing with email marketing, because what we're focusing on is we're focusing on building trust. We focus on that engagement, you get valuable content that you send out, and that builds that strong trust and those relationships. It also gets more people to the point of purchase because you have a relevant journey that you're sending people on. You're sending them great communications, and it gets you better qualified leads and better quality customers. And this is the kind of stuff that allows you to leverage the power of online, as people like to say, you know, super marketing speak, but it's what allows you to do that in an automated way. And what we are effectively wanting to do is we're wanting to get consumers to know you and know that you're the right choice for them. And we can only do that with consistent communication. We also know that consumers will pay 86% more, so they will spend more money just for a good experience. So if you do this right, they will also spend more money with you, which is exactly what Phil is getting. And 82% of consumers are always looking for content to help them. So we just need to get it to them. And that is the focus of the long-term nurture and the short-term nurture. So let's take a look at the nitty-gritty of those two. So this is the customer journey framework. This is the framework that over the last 8 years we have put together, and you know, we put in all of the businesses that we work with, and it's a pretty phenomenal structure. It's just a customer journey structure, and it's something that you should be following. But the thing that we want to focus on here is this little bit. So after people have come through for some form of content, signed up for a lead magnet, you have two things that happen. You send them a welcome, but you also add them into that nurture and value add. And you notice that that is before the sales part. So we send them that nurture and value add, but there's more as well. Because what we also want to do is after the sell, even if they haven't converted, so that's what this little red line is here, they go into long-term nurture. And if they have converted, they go into their purchase and their fulfillment and the customer welcome and all that good stuff, but they also go into the long-term nurture. And this is where it gets really exciting, because it's the combination of these two where we can track a little bit of engagement, figure out what people are interested in, and we can drop them back into the sales process. And people enjoy that, so you create multiple sales opportunities with more engaged leads, and that's the really cool thing. So the long-term nurture and short-term nurture together do some cool stuff. They really increase your engagement consistently. It allows you to leverage the power of content if you're creating great content, and therefore, if you're creating blog content, also increase the SEO on your site. It makes sure that you're increasing your email deliverability all the time, because as that engagement comes through, your email deliverability will go up. It allows you to segment people based on their interactions and therefore progressively profile your audience, so you always know what they're interested in. It will continually feed the sales machine that you're creating. So you'll continually be feeding people back into the sales process, and it stops a bit of that feast and famine that a lot of us businesses tend to work with all the time. And it will turn your funnels, if you've got structured funnels, into a bit more of a flywheel, so more of an organic process that continually moves all the time. And of course, most importantly, it's going to increase your customer lifetime value. So let's take a look at what that actually means. So the short-term nurture is this little bit at the front. The nurture and value add that happens straight away after someone signs up for something. It is not the welcome campaign. Okay, so you should have a welcome campaign going as well. That's another whole webinar, but it's the little thing that you send after people have signed up for something. The short-term nurture goes immediately, is specific to behavior. It is focused purely on value and consumption hype. Okay, so when you give someone a lead magnet, I mean, we're all guilty of this. We'll go and we'll sign up for something. We'll sign up for some kind of lead magnet. We'll download it. And we'll just never look at it ever again. It'll just like stay in our computer, and that PDF will just get lost in everything else. Or we'll sign up for an email series and we won't engage with it. So we have to focus on not only getting someone to download that lead magnet in the first place, but to actually consume the thing that they have asked for. That's our job as marketers, to get them to consume their content. So your short-term nurture should be a value add and consumption hype. It's also your first experience with people interacting with you as a company. And remember, it's specific. It's not a general thing. It's specific to the lead magnet that they have just signed up for. And if you're already doing a lot of email marketing, so if you're already an email designer, you're already working in a company that does this a lot, you can get fancy with your short-term nurtures. So those of you who are just getting started out, this is where you stick your fingers in your ears and sing yourself a song. So they don't want to overwhelm you, but this is when you're getting fancy with it, okay? Because what you can do is you can track the long-term nurture, and you can use engagement thresholds to trigger a short-term nurture sequence and then sell on people's behavior. And that is what creates those multiple sales opportunities and increases your conversion rates, because it's pure behavioral-based selling. And that will increase your customer lifetime value. So you can get really cool with your short-term nurtures as well if you're clever with them. But let's take a look at a basic structure for everybody. So those of you who are getting started with it, you can take your fingers out your ears now. And let's effectively look at the structure of short-term nurture campaigns. So a good short-term nurture campaign is triggered by some kind of behavior. In this instance, I've used the lead magnet example. And we want to send some nurture and value add. But how do you do that and what do you send, right? Well, if you've got a really good lead magnet that is laid out really nicely, the thing that we like to do for our customers when we're creating these campaigns is we always, that very first email is that welcome, thank you for signing up and delivering the lead magnet that they have asked for. And then you start transition into dripping lead magnet concepts. So for instance, let's say you gave them a lead magnet on the 5 reasons blah isn't working. You take those 5 individual concepts and you would write emails and you would add a little bit of extra value and you agitate that specific topic that you're talking about within the lead magnet. You basically take your lead magnet, split it up, and then write some emails based on it as well. Just some stuff that's going to add a little bit of extra, but remember, we're hyping them to actually consume what they've actually signed up for, because people like me just leave stuff on their computers. So this is a really great way to create that nurture and that value add. It's to give them a little bit of additional value, a little bit of additional insight on top of the lead magnet, but make sure that they're actually consuming it. So that's the easiest way to create a really great nurture sequence, is you give them all that information, you talk about their pains, you talk about their problems, they'll have hello and welcome, and then straight into that value add content. So this can be a really, really nice way before you transition into the sales. Don't start with the sales straight away. And I'm going to show you the perfect sales campaign as well. But you want to make sure that you give that little bit of value add. You can hint at the sales in here, but this is the structure of really good quality short-term nurture, is to transition them nicely through consuming the lead magnet before you start introducing the sales. That's a really great way to do it and an easy way to create a nurture series, and it works so very well. Okay, let's take a look at the long-term nurture now. The long-term nurture is the exciting bit, right? This is my exciting bit because this is what allows us to do progressive profiling really well. So as people have come in and they haven't converted or they have converted, everybody goes into the long-term nurture. And it's fine to put everybody in the long-term nurture, because what the long-term nurture is going to do is it's going to allow us to understand a little bit more about our audience, but it's also going to keep our audience warm. And because we're not selling in the long-term nurture, it's pure value add. We can always send that to everybody, even our existing consumers. Our existing customers, we can definitely send that to them. So what we want to do with the long-term nurture, and we want to make this easy for ourselves, we're busy, we don't want to add more stuff onto our plate. If you are creating really great blog content to bring people in the beginning, so if you're creating really great lead magnets and really great blogs, really great videos, really great podcasts, whatever your medium of choice is to create content to bring people in, utilize that content. Send that out to them on a weekly or fortnightly basis. And I do suggest that you do it weekly or fortnightly. Don't go any longer than that. And shorter than that, you need to be careful and set expectations really, really clearly. So I do suggest weekly or fortnightly. Take that content that you're already producing and send it to them, because you know that content's good quality. And if it's not good quality and you're scared to send it to your existing list, then there's a bigger problem there. But distribute your existing content to create that value add. And then what you do is you track that engagement and you learn a little bit more about your audience. Now, don't worry if you don't have the skills and the capability and the tools right now to do that. Just get started with actually sending it. Later on, you can go in and go, okay, I'm going to get nerdy with the tracking and the segmentation, etc. But just get started in sending something consistently that adds value. It's great for everything. So remember, the long-term nurture, we're going to drip highly valuable content, use your existing content where possible, and we're going to track behavior and we're going to segment based on the content that we're sending out. And you know, this is when you're starting to get a little bit more advanced, and that is what allows us to progressively profile. Now, there is a consideration in here. This can actually be a newsletter. So if you are sending a newsletter out, say monthly, if it is good enough quality, then it is definitely something that could be considered long-term nurture. But I would maybe consider sending your newsletter more frequently. So for instance, a great friend of ours, a dude called Roman, he runs a company called Pension Craft. He sends a weekly newsletter and is extremely well received, and he utilizes that as his long-term nurture. His open rate is 65% on average, and he doesn't have a small list. He's got a list of 5,000 plus. So you can utilize your newsletter to make something truly awesome. It just has to be really value-add focused in order for it to work. So it can be a newsletter. You don't have to get super crazy with blog content if you're not creating that. But if you're already creating content, send it out. So let's take a look at how this actually works, a campaign structure. So this might be a long-term nurture drip. You might have your long-term nurture content. You might, be sending it weekly, say for instance. And if you're feeling fancy, we're going to track people's engagement. So you can do this in your various different email marketing systems with adding tags to link clicks, or tracking engagement thresholds that way. I know we utilize Infusionsoft and Keep, so we just tag all of the links. But our clients who use ConvertKit and MailChimp, we also just track what links they're clicking on, and depending on what links, we put them into various different lists. So you don't have to get super complicated with that. So track that engagement. You can also do this totally manually if you feel like it. And you can look at stuff and you can go, okay, lots of people are clicking on this, lots of people are clicking on this. That's interesting. Now we have some specific segments, but it's definitely better if you automate it, because then we learn a little bit more about your audience, and this is your first step to progressively profiling. But for those of us who are a little bit more advanced, so again, if you're just getting started out, block your ears now. We can do something a little bit cooler. So as we are tracking people's engagement and we are segmenting them, we can kick off a lead magnet consumption sequence. So we can go, okay, well, these people are really enjoying this one specific type of content. I have a lead magnet for that. So let's send those people a lead magnet. If they take up the offer and they click on the lead magnet, well, we can put them in that short-term nurture sequence. We can send a little bit of nurture and value add. We can make an offer and we can sell them the appropriate product. And if they don't, that's fine. Let them carry on back in the long-term nurture again. So this is how we start to let the two systems interact with one another. It's pretty cool. All right, now you can unblock your ears now if you're just getting started out. I love to play the game between the simple and the complex, because it's the simple concepts that are the thing that is really powerful. You can have fun when it starts to get complex, but starting simple is definitely the best way. So you're doing a short-term nurture. Let's say you're doing a long-term nurture and you're just letting it tick along to increase your engagement. Let's talk about how you actually do the sales bit. What does the perfect sales campaign actually look like? Well, there is such a thing. It is possible to have a really good sales campaign. It's very hard to tell somebody you can have the perfect sales campaign for any product or any service, but there's a basic structure that works because this is how our brains work. So what we want to be doing all the time is we want to be focusing on increasing that reward value. And if you're focusing on doing the nurture, you'll do that. But then we also want to make sure that we are talking directly to the problem that they're currently facing. And your sales should always be focused around a problem and showing people the solution. And we do this with 3 emails. And the idea is that we send people a gain email, a logic email, and a respect email. So the gain email is all about what that person stands to gain from buying your product or your service. So this is all benefits. So it's all the great emotive stuff that they're going to receive from your product and your service. So we're going to talk very clearly, like, this is your problem. You can solve this problem, and it can be like this. And these are the benefits that you're going to receive. So we're going to talk about what they stand to gain if they buy your product and service. So we transition them really nicely into sales from that reward. Then we talk about the logic. So this is all the features of your product and service. This is the specific little bits. It has 5 parts. It does this. It does that. So you're really appealing to the logical side of them. But again, you've got to make sure that you're bringing that pain in. So you're agitating that pain all the time. You're saying, we know you have this specific problem, but wouldn't it be nice if you could do these things and then pull those features through? That is the power of working with this product or service. And so you take people from that emotive side to a slightly more logical side, and then we go into the respect side. And the respect sequence is all about talking them peer to peer and saying to them, you have this problem, you have this issue, you still haven't purchased, it's not going to get better if you don't do anything about it. So it's not about being nasty, it's not about pressurizing them, it's about saying it can be solved, but only if you take action. And you're being extremely respectful. The original series that we saw this being built off called this email a fear email, and we didn't like that. It also doesn't work because a fear email is going to make people really defensive. So instead, we talk to them respectfully and we say, you've got to fix this problem. So you're going from something that is a bit more emotive to something that's a bit more logical but agitates that problem, to something where you're sitting down and going, look, it can be achieved this way. And if you want super brownie points and a super effective sequence, then what you will actually do is you'll put little micro case studies, so little examples of people having had those same problems and those same challenges, and how they were solved utilizing your product and service. That is a phenomenal sales sequence. But we don't stop there, because those 3 emails are a great basis, and they don't have to just be 3. You can increase it. You can have a little bit more if you have more to talk about, but generally 3 is very comfortable. If someone clicks through to your product or service, and you will be able to tell this with your marketing automation system, if they click through to your product or service but don't go on to buy, we want to send a cart abandonment series. A lot of people tend to think that you can't send a cart abandonment if you don't have an actual shopping cart. That's not true. We can use the same premise because we can track the fact that they've clicked on the link, but they haven't purchased. So if they have clicked the link and they haven't purchased, they haven't gone on to complete what we want them to complete, we can send a couple of emails that push a little bit harder. So this is your opportunity to be like, not creepy about it, but I noticed you clicked and you didn't buy. Here's some reasons you should. Or ask them, is there anything that I can help with? And then you can also really get into the motivational stuff, because these people are interested. They're much more interested in the people who haven't clicked. They are interested, and it's now time to motivate and inspire them off of that fence that they are sitting on. So in this section, we can bring through use cases, user stories, what people are up to, case studies. We can get a little bit more in depth. And generally, sort of 2 to 3 emails in a cart abandonment is absolutely perfect. So you're looking at, for a basic sales series, around 5 emails, 1 focusing on what they stand to gain, 1 focusing on the logic, 1 focusing on talking to them peer-to-peer, and at least 2 cart abandonment emails to inspire and motivate them to actually complete that purchase. And that is what we like to call the perfect sales campaign, and it works phenomenally well for our customers and our clients. Now, we covered quite a lot, but let's round all of that up. So we know that short-term nurture sequences are a massive engagement opportunity, because it's an opportunity to increase that reward value, to get people to consume the lead magnet and to start that relationship off the right way. But it doesn't end there. Your relationship building is really long-term. And that's why you should have a long-term nurture in place to make sure that you're consistently adding value and educating. And then focus on always heightening the position of your brand. If you're heightening the position of your brand, you are increasing the amount of reward value, and you are increasing the chance that you have to actually get that conversion. So don't stop. If someone goes through short-term nurture and they don't buy at the end of that, that's okay. Add them into the long-term nurture, and then focus on heightening the position of your brand through sending through consistent value add. And always nurture first, and then the perfect sales sequence. So if you're going to look at a sales campaign, do that little nurture piece where you send, little welcome, nice few emails, and then transition into that sales sequence. So that works really well to make sure that you're getting people through that lead magnet, getting them consuming something, and then getting that conversion from the end of it. Now, if you want to make sure that you are actually making this happen, if you want a little bit more information, then by all means, go check out the book. This is literally what the book is written about, the science behind why all of this works and the structure for your customer journey. So go and check that out. But Lenka has given me a full permission to tell you about the Marketing Automation Academy, which just launched yesterday, which is really exciting. But if you're really interested in all of this stuff, then go check out the Academy. That is the link to it. And I'm ready for your questions now. Go on, Lenka.
We've got one question from James, who's asking that at the very beginning of the funnel, how does one go about building a mailing list? Oh. He might have some contacts that he's obtained before from phone calls and stuff like that. And he's asking if he can use these as the first email, or how it goes with GDPR and stuff like that. So how would you recommend people to get started if they are literally at the beginning of their email marketing journey?
Yeah, I'm going to be really cheeky and say you should just sign up to the Marketing Automation Academy, because we're actually doing a challenge on that on Tuesday. But the way that you do that is you always have a really great lead magnet. So inbound is always going to give you the best results. So having people sign up for something and therefore give you permission to email them, because you are on shaky ground there about GDPR. So if you have an email list where they haven't explicitly said that they're interested in receiving marketing communications from you, and they haven't accepted your terms and conditions, then effectively you are in slightly shaky GDPR territory. So you can reach out to those people and ask them and say, I'm going to be sending some amazing emails very soon that have some really cool content. Are you okay for me to send those? And if they say yes to that, then 100% you can email them and start your list. But what I would do is, if you're starting out, start with a really good lead magnet. It doesn't have to be something complicated. It can be something as simple as a checklist, and just get people to sign up for that, and then start talking to them on a regular basis, and shout about that on your social media. Like, really get the word out there. That's what social media is so amazing for, is that distribution of your content. So distribute it and shout out about the fact that, you're going to be sending people some amazing emails. When you focus on sending value add content, people want to receive those emails from you. So shaky GDPR territory there, you're going to need to ask them for permission. Some people ignore my advice and fly under the radar and they do it fine, but I'm not going to give you that advice. You need to ask for permission.
Yeah, totally. Always stay safe.
Yeah.
I'd rather have a smaller list, but make sure that it's GDPR compliant and the people on there actually want to receive my emails.
Exactly. Yeah, because otherwise your email deliverability is going to be crap. So, yeah, and your engagement will be poor as well. So rather start with something that's really small, but people are really excited to be there.
Yeah. We got a couple of people asking about how do you write an engaging copy and how do you create engaging content?
Okay. Well, your first port of call is figuring out what your audience cares about. The thing that people are always going to be the most engaged with is stuff that they're actually interested in. So you don't have to be having like the most exciting copy and the most exciting stuff. For instance, the example that I gave of Roman with his newsletter, his content is literally all finance. It's like pretty hardcore finance stuff that he's sending through, and it's not something that seems like the most thrilling thing in the world, but for the people who care about that, it's super thrilling. So if you can tap into something that your audience is really, really rabidly passionate about, then you're always going to win. But when you're focusing on like some tips to actually create engaging copy, don't write in the passive voice, make it really active, be excited about what you're talking about. If you are excited about it, they will be excited about it. Make sure that, you don't use a bunch of jargon, talk to another human being. So imagine like sitting across the table from somebody and having a chat with someone, and just focus on those things that they care about and focus on the things that are a problem for them right now. And then focus on talking to them like a human and being enthusiastic about it, and your copy will be awesome. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. We've got a very interesting question asking, what are your thoughts on the upcoming Facebook email service?
Oh, not positive. they're not the most positive. So the reason for that is I purely believe in inbound. Very, very strongly believe in inbound. I've worked in email marketing for enough time now to know that inbound works way better than anything else. So people who have signed up and are interested in receiving stuff from you are always going to be interested in receiving stuff from you. But I'm a little bit iffy, and I'm on the fence about how great that Facebook service is going to be, because it really depends on whether people are signing up for something. And you don't have to get fancy with stuff. You can send stuff. You can send a great newsletter and a great engagement series from MailChimp for free if you wanted to. So I'm on the fence about it. I feel iffy about the process because I'm not convinced that it's going to be used in the right way. And I feel like people are going to abuse it. So, I'm always for inbound. So if people are going to opt in to receive those emails for you 100%, I'm excited about it. But if they haven't, then not so excited. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
How do you feel about it, Lenka?
Yeah, I'm still on the verge of it. I'm not sure. I haven't had a chance to research it properly, but I think that you make some good points in terms of, Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another question that's more about tools. James is asking, MailChimp is the first one that comes to mind, but if we're first venturing into email automation, what would be your preferred choice of a kind of cheap-ish platform that is suitable for starters who don't have any HTML experience and stuff like that?
Okay. So it really depends. It's a hard question to answer because it really depends on what you need. So MailChimp is a great starting point, but MailChimp starts to fall apart when you start connecting all of the email sequences together. So when you start creating funnels effectively, and you're trying to create something a little bit more robust, that's a bit more like a customer journey, that's where you're going to get into difficulty with MailChimp. It does have the automation capability. I'll say that it has customer capability, but it's hard to use. So that's always where I stand with MailChimp. But if you're just going to be building a list and sending a few emails out, then MailChimp's a nice starter. I absolutely love both Keep and ConvertKit. So ConvertKit's a little bit more of an investment, but that allows you to start linking sequences together and so on and so forth, which is great. So I love that. And Keep is always going to, so Keep and Infusionsoft are always my first loves. And the reason for that is the behavioral capability. It is so easy to segment people behaviorally within those systems that I'm always going to suggest those. So those are always my favorite. There's a reason I'm a certified partner for that, because it allows me to do the behavioral stuff that I want to do. So for segmentation capability, they're always going to be the starting point, and Keep is now cheap enough that if you are starting out with it, it's not a massive investment to make. So that's generally my suggestion.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I switched from MailChimp to ConvertKit last year, and it wasn't big deal with the investment. ConvertKit is fairly affordable, but I really enjoyed how it integrates with WordPress, because MailChimp seemed to be a massive pain in the ass when I started doing more automation. So ConvertKit was very seamless to embed things and do automations within WooCommerce and WordPress and stuff like that. So it really depends on what it is that you need. I think that's it. I'm checking the questions, but it seems like we've covered everything that people wanted to know. As always, if there's more that you would like to know, just drop a comment under this video or find Kenda on LinkedIn or anywhere, and I'm sure that she will be more than happy to answer your follow-up questions. And definitely make sure to check out her Marketing Automation Academy, because I watched some of her webinars that she's done this year, kind of on the topics that go beyond today's session, and it's just so helpful and so practical. So I would highly recommend you to go and check it out. One quick question I've seen for Rajan. Is it better to have a landing page on your own site or use a third party?
Okay, so if we look at the psychology of it, definitely better to have it on your own site. However, people don't pay as much of attention to that as we tend to think. So if you can create a better quality landing page where the user experience is better and you do that via a third party, totally fine. That is the most important thing. What does it look like and what does it feel like and how easy is it to use and understand? That trumps everything else. So if you can't do that on your own site, opt for a third party. But if you can do that on your own site, then ditch the third party service.